to you.
Thank you so much for the question. Honorable Chair, Excellencies, and distinguished delegates, it's an honor to speak to you on this issue. The Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action means many things to me. As a young Nigerian girl, it meant a promise that all women, no matter where they come from, would have the right to education, to healthcare, and leadership. But as a young woman with a disability, it also meant a question. Did that promise include me? At the age of 17, I stood at the crossroad, not just between two paths, but between two versions of my life. One moment, I was a teenage girl with dreams. Next, I was a girl with a disability, unsure of what my future held. I wasn't afraid because I had lost something. I was afraid because the world suddenly saw me as less. I became invisible in spaces where I once belonged. The question was no longer what I could achieve, but what I could no longer do. That was when I realized the world is not designed for women with disabilities to thrive. And if we do not demand justice, it never will be. 30 years ago, the world convened in Beijing and declared women's rights are human rights. That commitment changed lives. More women in leadership, more girls in schools, more policies for gender equality. But let me ask you today, has that progress included all women? Because gender justice is incomplete if it does not include women and girls with disabilities. How many girls with disabilities are left out of menstrual health discussion simply because no one thinks they will need it? How many women with disabilities are denied sexual and reproductive health care because society assumes they are asexual? How many girls with disabilities are missing from classrooms, not because they lack intelligence, but because inclusion is seen as too expensive? How many women with disabilities are absent from decision-making spaces, not because they lack vision, but because the world refuses to see their potential? And the issue goes deeper. We don't even have the data to measure how many women and girls with disabilities are being left behind. If you are not counted, then you do not count. We cannot talk about justice while allowing an entire group of women to remain invisible. So how do we protect the gains of the Beijing Platform for Action and create pathways, new pathways, to ensure that young women and girls with disabilities can make decisions about their lives, both in public and private spaces? First, countries must disaggregate data by gender, disability, and age. Without data, women and girls with disabilities remain invisible in policies and budgets. Next, governments and organizations must actively engage young women with disabilities in policy creation and leadership, not as afterthoughts, but as experts. Gender equality strategies must be inclusive by design, not in theory. Equally important, schools must be built for all learners. Healthcare systems must train providers to respect and serve women with disabilities. Leadership spaces must be welcoming, not just in words, but in action. Beyond that, disability inclusion is not a charity issue, it is a justice issue. Women with disabilities must have access to grants, mentorships, and entrepreneurship opportunities to shape their futures. Finally, we must change mindsets through media and storytelling. The way society sees women and girls with disabilities determines how they are treated. We need representation in media, politics, business, and education so that young girls grow up knowing that they belong everywhere. Women and girls with disabilities must be leaders in their own futures. We are not passive beneficiaries, we are experts in our own lives. 17 years ago, I stood at a crossroad unsure of my future. Today, I come before you with clarity, purpose, and an unwavering demand for justice. Women and girls with disabilities are leaders. I'll leave you with one final question. When history looks back at this moment, will you be remembered as someone who broke all the barriers, or as someone who allowed them to remain? The time to act is now. Thank you.